Today, we're diving into something that's, well, at the very heart of our food chain. It's a system that's in trouble. But as one door closes, sometimes another one, a much more technological one, creaks open. Let's get into it. I want you to really think about that for a second. What if the most important workers on the entire planet just stopped showing up for their shift? And I'm not talking about factory workers or truckers. I'm talking about the tiny, buzzing engines of our whole agricultural system. What happens to our food when they're gone? Well, here's the reality. It's a big deal. The Food and Agriculture Organization estimates we'd lose somewhere between 5 and 8% of all our agricultural production. Poof, gone. That's not just a small dip. That's a massive, sudden global food deficit. All because these tiny little creatures are in big, big trouble.
Now, you might be thinking, well, hold on, what about a greenhouse? A totally controlled environment, safe from the outside world. It seems like it would be a paradise for plants and pollinators, right? But actually, it's one of the toughest workplaces for them, and that's creating a huge headache for modern farming.
So why is it so tough in there? It's kind of like a perfect storm of problems for a bee. First, it's hard for them to even get in and out. Inside, you've usually got just one type of crop, not a diverse buffet. Then there's pesticide use, which can be really harmful. And the climate itself, it's all dialed in for the plants, not necessarily for the bees. It's just not a great place to work.
So, all of this has forced us to look for an alternative. And that alternative? Yeah, it's coming from the world of robotics.
That's right, with bees and other natural pollinators really struggling, especially in these high-tech greenhouses, scientists and engineers are looking to a pretty unlikely hero to step up and fill those tiny shoes, the robot.
And this isn't some sci-fi fantasy. The work itself, going from flower to flower, doing the same exact delicate task over and over again, is actually perfect for a machine. As researchers in the field put it, the job is ideally suited for robots. And that one idea is kicking off a huge revolution in how we farm.
But how do they actually do it? It's a delicate operation. To really get a handle on the tech, we're going to look at two very different crops. Each one presents a totally unique puzzle for a robot to solve.
So first up, let's talk about one of the most popular and widely grown vegetables on the planet, the tomato. Now, the cool thing about a tomato plant is that its flowers are basically self-sufficient. They've got all the parts they need, both male and female, in one single flower. All they need to get the job done is a little nudge, just a little shake, for the pollen to drop from one part to another. It's a process called self-pollination. And how we've provided that shake has its own pretty interesting history. For centuries, it was the natural buzz of bees. Then, when bees weren't around, humans had to step in with these little vibrating wands going flower by flower. But now, we're seeing the next step in that evolution, highly specialized robots. One of the cleverest solutions is what you could call the air pulse. You have these autonomous robots, like ones from a company called Aruga AI, that just glide down the rows of plants. They use cameras to spot the flowers, and then, poof, they deliver a perfectly aimed little puff of air. It gently shakes the flower, mimicking wind, and gets the job done without ever even touching it. Another idea takes to the skies. Instead of a robot on the ground, researchers are using drones. They just hover right over the tomato plants, and the wind from their propellers, the downdraft, is enough to gently shake whole clusters of flowers at once. It's a way to cover a ton of ground, really fast. But this next one might be the coolest. Get this, it's a robotic arm that directly mimics a bumblebee. It has a tiny vibrating tip, and it's tuned to vibrate between 150 and 200 hertz. Now, why that very specific number? Because that is the exact frequency of a bumblebee's wings when it's doing its special buzz pollination. It is literally technology copying nature's genius. Okay, so that's the tomato, a relatively simple problem. But what happens when the challenge gets way more complicated? For that, let's turn to the kiwifruit. See, kiwis are a whole different ballgame. They can't pollinate themselves because the plants are either male or female. So for them, it's a two-step process. You have to physically collect pollen from a male flower and then deliver it to a female flower. It's less of a gentle shake and more of an agricultural matchmaking service. So let's just break that down one more time. Tomatoes, it's a one-flower job. Everything happens right there. Kiwifruits, it's a two-flower operation. Pollen has to physically travel from one plant to another. And that fundamental difference means you need a much smarter robot. And you can really see that extra complexity in how the technology evolved. Again, it started with insects, Then it moved to humans doing this painstaking work with little brushes, hand-pollinating each flower. After that came these kind of crude sprayers, and now, finally, we're seeing these incredibly intelligent robotic arms start to emerge.
The first attempts with robots were pretty much a shotgun approach. I mean, they'd mix the pollen with water and then just spray it everywhere, over a huge area, hoping that some of it would happen to land on the right female flowers. It kind of worked, but it was super inefficient and wasted a ton of that precious pollen.
But today's systems, they are way more surgical. We're talking sophisticated robotic arms that have AI-powered cameras. The robot can actually see and identify an individual female flower, aim a single tiny nozzle, and deliver a precise puff of pollen right where it needs to be. We're talking success rates as high as 99%. It's incredible.
So these solutions sound amazing, right? But the tech isn't quite perfect yet. Let's take a look at some of the hurdles that engineers still need to clear.
You know, each one of these cool technologies has its own little problem to solve. The air jets can still waste some pollen. The water sprayers, well, they run the risk of spreading plant diseases. And drones, they're still held back by short battery life and trouble navigating really dense greenhouses. The next big step is making all these systems smarter, more adaptive, and able to work completely on their own.
Because really, the ultimate dream here isn't just to build a robot for tomatoes or a robot for kiwis. The real goal is to create an intelligent, all-purpose pollinator. A single, versatile machine that's affordable and can work in any greenhouse, with any crop, making sure our food supply stays safe and secure.
Which really just leaves us with one last big question. As we look ahead, is the soundtrack of our farms going to change? Will that familiar, gentle buzz of bees slowly be replaced by the quiet, electric hum of machines?